This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy, part of the Deluxe Edition Network. Head to deluxeeditionnetwork.com to find out about all of the Lully shows on the Den Lully. Do you hear that? This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have Professor Aubrey, and this week we're going to be talking about a topic that I think we're both experts on.
Yeah.
Yeah, workplace stress.
Oh, yeah. I definitely am an expert. And yeah, and you're an expert as well, you think.
Yeah, we definitely have over 300 episodes now of evidence of that being the case. We now have more episodes, more episodes than there are days in a year. So,
Wow.
yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
damn right it is.
You could listen to our show for a year every day.
Every single day for
and
a
it would
year.
be different.
Yeah,
That's pretty impressive.
yep. Well, anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. Work stress. And so this week we're going to look at a article that is about what to do to help relieve your work stress.
That is correct. It is from the Harvard Business Review. We're getting fancy this week, so just like the SpongeBob episode we just watched, pinkies up, everybody. It's written by Allison Meister, Bonnie Hayden Chang, Nell Dale, and if I mispronounce that, I apologize, and Francesca Krings. Again, how to recover from work stress according to science. It is something that we all face, we're all going to encounter, whether it be a company that we start up on our own, or you taking a paycheck every week or 2 weeks or so to be able to do a job for somebody else. You're going to encounter stress at work. But I think with today's society that we live in, more and more, especially when we're talking companies owned by that are just big corporations, they're asking more of people, and people are burning out.
That's right. People are really burning out, and it's like the Great Resignations. Apparently, there's going to be another one of those soon.
I mean, especially with technology being the way it is, I think we've mentioned it on the show before that, we are in a big time transitional period, because we are finding out that stuff like office buildings, thanks to technology, are kind of irrelevant depending on the type of business, of course, but a lot of stuff can be done at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why do you need to have a 40-story building with your company's name on it and all the upkeep that entails, when you can just, maybe have a 20-story building and have the rest of the people do their work from home?
Well, it's interesting, the work from home phenomenon, and the idea that in the future we'll just be more and more at home.
It's just, yeah. I mean, I think, again, my theory as to why they are pushing the return to the office thing on their employees is just simply because of how much it costs to, maintain those buildings. They own or lease or whatever, I mean, because, like power bill is, I'm sure, is not cheap for a high rise. And the water bill, I'm sure, is not cheap.
No, but it seems like the board of directors of any company would see through that, though, and be like, no, we need to unload this property. But everybody's afraid to start the sell-off.
Because if you think about it, having the employees come to work is a form of control. If the employees at home doing their work, they don't have as tight of control on that person as they normally would.
Yes, that's also true.
Yeah, so anyway, lots of stress here, lots of things to rant on about, I would say. But most importantly, like I mentioned, everybody's going to go through it, even if it's a job you really, really, really love. And I think the purpose of this article here is to talk about ways that you can cope with that stress as best as you can.
That's right. And, the philosophy, I think, starts from a place of being in the moment that you're not at work. So we'll see how all of the items kind of relate to being in the moment when you're not at work.
All right. So with that, how about I dive into point number 1?
That'd be great.
All right. Detach psychologically from work. It sounds silly, but after a long, intense surgery, what I do to relax is play video games to disconnect before I go home. Described an orthopedic surgeon participating in an executive class on stress management. Regardless of your preferred recovery activity, reading, running, video games, cooking, etc., it's important that you mentally disconnect or switch off your thoughts of work or the particular stressor at hand. Workday stress accumulates throughout the day, meaning that we ruminate about work well into the evening. You may be physically present at an exercise class, but your mind is replaying the events of an earlier client meeting. Research shows that even thinking about work detracts from your ability to recover from it, and the mere presence of your mobile phone distracts you, leaving you unable to detach from the office. As recovery can only occur when our minds return to pre-stressor levels, we need to facilitate that process by cognitively withdrawing from thoughts of work, essentially giving our minds a break. Detachment leads to better recovery and even improvements in work-related outcomes, such as performance and engagement. This is counterintuitive to the notion that more time spent working leads to better performance. To harness this principle, dedicate a fixed and, if needed, short time each day when you can fully devote attention to a non-work related activity. Even starting with a few minutes will reap benefits for recovery. Practicing mindfulness as a supplementary activity helps with this. Over time, you're training your brain and its tendency to ruminate to focus on the present moment. Learn which triggers prevent you from psychologically detaching from work. If, for instance, the presence of your phone prompts you to check work emails during off hours or breaks, turn it off or shut off notifications temporarily. One thing I would add to that too, and I've brought it up on the show in terms of a big lesson that I learned, is the importance of understanding what a work friend really is. And not making the mistake of making your entire life be around work. I'm not saying don't make friends at work, or that you never will, but try to, in the vein of what this point was trying to say, I think it is wise to make sure that, you also have friends that have nothing to do with that work, a separate life, if you will, to kind of keep the work away. Because, what I found through my experience was anytime anybody from work got together, all they would do is bitch about work, even if they were doing something fun. Whereas if I'm spending time with someone that I do not work with, we both get a chance to escape from our day-to-day 9 to 5 type of life and just have a little bit of fun.
Absolutely. You also have a different person to bounce things off of. But yeah, I think being able to detach from work is difficult in the modern era where we do have our phones taunting us. Even if we try not to look at them or we decide not to respond to emails at night, they're there
Yeah.
and they're there. So that's one element. The other element is the general disengagement. So a general disengagement from those moments where you feel some meaning or you are present in the moment.
Yeah, because like the video game example that they mentioned in the article, I mean, you don't really have time to think about anything else. You are concentrated on achieving the goal that you want for the particular game that you're playing. Like if, you're going through a Lego game, for instance, you want to complete the level to get all the studs, and that's what you're focused on. And that takes you away from the regular 9 to 5 stuff that, could be bothering you. And I think the key here is, as you pointed out, something that does put you in the present. It could be something as simple as buying a cheap musical instrument and spending 10, 20 minutes of your day learning how to play it.
Mm-hmm.
That again, with your brain being what it is when you are playing a musical instrument. Yeah, you're not unless you're like a skilled musician or something like that. I don't think, someone at my level is going to be able to just strum along and think about life. You're going to be focused on, I need the G, I needed to get to a C, and no, my hands are cramping. Fuck.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So, should we move along to number 2?
Number 2. Read number 2.
Number 2 is harness the power of micro breaks during the workday. During the work week, I set my phone alarm to ring once every 2 hours as a needed reminder to step away from my computer, stretch, walk around, and get a drink of water. An executive vice president of a multinational technology company recounted. Contrary to common assumptions that recovery can only happen after work or during a long holiday, research shows that micro breaks, short breaks of approximately 10 minutes, taken during the workday, are surprisingly effective for recovering from daily work stress and various job demands. For example, short moments of meditation or relaxing, taking the time to eat a nutritious snack, enjoyable social interactions, or activities that require some degree of cognitive attention, such as reading, are strategies that can improve motivation and concentration, shape your mood, and sustain your energy during the day. Also, taking longer breaks in combination with more frequent short breaks can provide more energy, motivation, and concentration than infrequent short breaks. Interestingly, micro breaks taken earlier in the workday contribute to greater recovery. It's important to resist the urge to push through the day, assuming that it will be easier to recover later or to save up your recovery for the weekend or even for that holiday that's still months away. To maximize your recovery, ensure that you have a recovery plan that you can enact on a daily basis through the use of micro breaks that you can schedule into your busy workflow with dedicated smartphone apps. Now, they say, they point out this executive vice president who has an alarm to step away from her desk every 2 hours. Like 2 hours is a pretty long period of time to be sitting in the same repose. And I know this because that's what I do, is I sit around all day long, sit around. And it really has an impact on my body. And I think it wouldn't have so much of an impact if I would set an alarm and get up. But I would think like once an hour would be better than once every 2 hours.
Kind of piggybacking on your point, I mean, what I thought of when you were reading that was like the fact that you do discover the older you get, you should have worked out a little more when you were younger. In terms of like some of the everyday aches and pains you go through, maybe they wouldn't maybe they wouldn't be as pronounced at your older age if you had exercised more or treated your body a little better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So in this case, yeah, I think it is important to, whether it be an hour, if you are physically capable of sitting for 2 hours, I couldn't do that. Then, if that's comfortable for you, great. But it is important to make sure you have those breaks during the day to just get up, walk around, get your body moving, the blood flowing to all those places, hydrate yourself if you can, and just take a little bit of a break. It doesn't have to be long. It could be a 10-minute break. It could be if you work in an office situation and you have like your own actual office and not part of a cube, then you can like theoretically like get up and walk in front of your desk in circles. I don't know, but you can do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Back when I used to have my own office, which has been 10 years now, sometimes I would take a 10-minute nap. I would just put my head on my desk, close the blinds, and take a little 10-minute nap.
Now, you can speak to this as a lawyer because I'm sure you are aware of other lawyers who are sleep deprived that still find ways to nap through the day. Is this something that you gradually learn through school and then become accustomed to once you are a lawyer? a full-fledged lawyer.
Well, probably, and that's probably true for every profession. You know, when you start out, you just are working like crazy because you perceive that other people know so much more than you, which they do because they have many more years experience than you do. But it's not like you can, like, it's a process to get that information and to learn all of those things. And so, I absolutely think people at the beginning of their careers are working more. So, the people who are working and really grinding and working 12-hour days, 16-hour days sometimes, they really do need those 10-minute micro naps just to get through the day. So, yeah, I think being in law school and then being a practicing lawyer as a new lawyer, absolutely, I was working insane hours and needed to take micro breaks.
That reminds me of when I would sleep in high school. Like, but in class, what I would do, I'd like put my head down, but then I would get so comfortable that the body would just get super relaxed and almost like a sleep state. But I was, conscious in terms of, if the teacher said my name or something, I would be up. So
Right.
it was a state of relaxing there. I only slept in class once. Yeah, it was 10th or 11th grade or something like that. I transferred to this high school and had to take a class that normally you would take when you were a freshman, a careers class or something like that. And the teacher was just a notorious for not really giving a fuck about that job,
Mm-hmm.
like just drone on and on and on. And some people I mean, there was even rumors that she was a drunk too, and that, she was like drunk through class. That I can't confirm. That's just kids being kids, of course. I mean, we were that evil in the 90s.
Yes.
But it was one time, but like I put my head down, I was resting, and then all of a sudden, somebody's shaking me, and I'm like, what? And I got drool all over my shirt. Just dripping.
How long had you been asleep, do you think?
Uh, Maybe 10, 20 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get in trouble, of course, because again, the teacher did not care. I don't know what, she may have just been burned out because of douchebags like me. But, I didn't get in trouble.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Anyway, shall I go on to the next point?
Yeah, let's go on to the next point.
Okay. Did you have a point, Tim? I don't know. Anyway, number 3, consider your preference for recovery activity. I used to partake in my partner's hobby during my free time so that we could spend quality time together. Then I realized I dreaded going to guitar lessons. Now we do our own hobbies. I do my gardening while my partner learns guitar, and we carve out time to spend together afterwards. Although having a choice over your recovery activity sounds like common sense, this experience, described by the CFO of a global events company, highlights the challenges of applying this principle. Perhaps you felt pressured into going to a group exercise class, or maybe your company organized a group wellness activity during the weekend when you really just wanted to be at home with your family. Not having a choice in your own recovery can sometimes do more harm than good. For example, one study showed that when workers wanted to sit with coworkers and chat over the lunch break, it boosted their stress recovery. On the other hand, when workers were less keen about socializing over lunch but did so anyway, perhaps due to peer pressure or norms of the particular company culture, they found their energy highly depleted at the end of the day. The same pattern of depletion was also identified for working lunches. For most people, working over lunch is draining. Yet, if you personally choose to stay in a productive workflow during lunchtime and get energized by accomplishing important tasks, there can be recovery benefits. Just keep in mind that relaxing is an important recovery activity that affords benefits, even when it's not your most preferred lunch break activity. In sum, be mindful about how you use your lunch breaks. If you feel pressure to socialize or continue working, talk to your manager about how you can get more autonomy over how you schedule and use your break. Then spend those free slots doing recovery activities that you prefer.
And they're saying one of which might be working over your lunch period?
I mean, maybe if that is for somebody, or I think what they were trying to say is that, maybe for some people it's going to be a reality that you work through some of your lunch, but it is important throughout your day to have recovery time available because every job is different, I guess. That we can talk all day about how corporations demand a lot of crap, but again, learning to be a lawyer yourself, yeah, you realize that sometimes the job has to get done by a certain point, right?
Yeah, and that's all fine. I mean, I think what the article is saying is what's important is you're choosing what you're going to do. And if you're choosing to stay at work during your lunch because you are on a roll, that is a recovery activity. And whatever it is that you choose to do with the time that you could spend doing whatever you wanted is probably a good hint that that's a recovery activity.
Yeah.
And with that limited recovery time, we ought to be trying to do things that actually help us rather than scrolling or playing a game on our phone. Not that playing a game is not a fine recovery activity, but I just think looking at our phones all the time is not a great recovery activity.
Mm, I mean, didn't they say the same thing about books at one point?
Did they?
I think they did. It was covered on Adam Ruins Everything. Like he went back in time, with the research that he did, and like popular things like books in newspapers at the time were pronounced as being a fad, or taking away too much time. People are spending too much time reading and not talking. And which is kind of the same thing that they say about phones now. People are spending too much time on their phones and not with each other, even though on your phones you have these little tools that allow you to speak to people around the world if you want.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a positive and a negative to everything, I guess. But again, to the point of this, you got to focus on your recovery too. It's great if you want to be a company person and you go the extra mile and you work the 60, 70, 80-hour week or something like that. But it will catch up to you if you do not take time to recover. And also, too, if you think about it like a race or something like that, or like if you're prepared to run like a 5K or, ride your bike through the mountains or something like that, you got to prepare physically for that. Because if you just hop on a bike and try and ride through a bumpy forest or something like that, you can get injured. Or let's say you've been sitting on your couch for 2 months and then decide, oh, there's a 5K tomorrow, I'm going to try and run it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to feel good. Maybe you could complete it, who knows? But, you prepare for that and you allow for the proper recovery.
Yes,
Yes. All right.
absolutely.
How about you dive into the next point before I continue my rant?
Okay,
And
sounds
another
good.
thing.
Prioritize high effort recovery activities. So this one I think is the most interesting. So pay attention, everyone. I may not be rah rah about it ahead of time, but there's never been a gym session I've regretted afterwards, proclaimed a senior executive of a multinational healthcare company. While it may seem relaxing, watching TV or other passive or low effort activities are best for recovery. While it may seem like it, in fact, on the contrary, research shows that more active activities can be even more effective for recovery. If you don't enjoy going to the gym or playing team sports, find a type of exercise that you do enjoy, such as a fast walk or hike or a swim. Beyond exercise, other activities that work well for recovery are engaging in effortful activities or mastery experiences. Mastery experiences require high levels of dedication, focus, and time, resources that usually zap you of energy during the workday. While it seems counterintuitive that further drawing on these resources during non work periods will benefit your recovery, mastery experiences such as pursuing a hobby, like learning a new language, learning to play the violin, volunteering, etc., helps you generate new skills and replenish depleted resources that can be applied back to your work, thereby approaching recovery from a different productive angle. Beyond the standard recovery activities like exercise or yoga and meditation, it may be time to add a new tool to your recovery toolkit. Why not sign up for that kickboxing class? Or maybe it's time to dust off that old guitar. What I think is interesting about this article is that it's in the Harvard Business Review. So it's always like pointing out the ways in which what it's suggesting would be good for the employer, right? Like, this is going to help you recover so that you can dedicate more resources to your work.
But they don't offer that, depending on the profession, to their employees.
What do you mean?
They think of the amount of people in executive or managerial positions that do get like special that can access the company gym if they work in an office building, or get special discounts that the regular employees do not get. It's going to be much more prevalent in stuff like retail, of course. Like you have the executives in the home office somewhere that probably do again have a gym in the corporate office headquarters there, but the average 9 to 5 employees have to be there every day, and you don't have enough money to be able to invest in stuff like that to potentially work out.
Yeah, man, it's a grind. So, I mean, this is typical advice for just mental health, right? Is that exercise is one of the best things that you can do to make yourself feel better.
And I did like the fact that the point here talked about, I mean, if you think about exercise, like mental exercise is important too. Because the passive recovery stuff can be beneficial, but in a much smaller way. I mean, sometimes if you had a rough day, kicking back and watching a movie on a streaming service will feel good on that day. But if you can spend 30 minutes learning how to play guitar, down the road, it's, or even, while you're learning that process, it can have it can be a much more fulfilling experience than watching a show you probably watched 10 times before.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it depends on what you're watching, right? If you're watching really good entertainment, I think that can exercise your mind as well.
It generally can, but yeah.
Like, I think of The Matrix. Like, man, that's a lot of thinking that goes into that, watching that movie, particularly the first time, which has been fairly recent for me.
Yeah.
I know that most people have seen it a million times, but I have not.
Yeah, I was a big fan of those when they first came out. I mean, I love the kicking
You love the kicking.
in the movies,
Oh, right.
karate, the fight scenes.
Yeah, the kicking is great.
Yeah. All right. Shall I go on to the last point?
Yes, what is the last point, Tim?
All right. Shape your environment for optimal recovery. One underrated critical element of recovery is your surrounding environment. Some companies have caught on and are building direct and indirect exposure to natural elements into the workplace. Indeed, research on direct exposure to nature, such as through park walks during workday lunch breaks, shows that it can enhance your recovery from stress in as little as 10 minutes. In addition to short-term effects, being exposed to nature at work contributes positively to your well-being and lowers the likelihood of burnout. Exposure to daylight and having a window view or indoor greenery at the workplace have been shown to have a positive impact on your sleep quality, perceived stress, and overall health. Interestingly, indirect exposure to nature, for example, even looking at nature scenes on a screen, can also have benefits for recovery. In a nutshell, getting some nature into your workplace makes you more happy and energized at work. No need to book a trip to the mountains. You can try to stay connected to nature while at work by using any outdoor facilities your employer provides, like cafeteria terraces or green spaces at the building entries, opening windows regularly to bring in fresh air, taking short walks in a nearby park during your micro breaks, and even suggesting outdoor walking meetings when possible. If all else fails, try to get some exposure through nature photography or videos. I think that is a very solid point, because it's like I mentioned, as someone who on occasion loves to leave treats out for the birds and the squirrels in the neighborhood. Just having that little bit of interaction with the wildlife in town here just is an awesome feeling.
Yeah, I mean, nature's where it's at. I absolutely agree that being outside is much more beneficial than being inside. So whatever you can do outside, you ought to do outside.
Yeah, like if, just get out the fresh air, the regular sunlight, because depending on where you work, you could be primarily with fluorescent lights. Like recently, at where I work, I started using the plug-in lights more in the dog area instead of the fluorescent lights, and for some reason, I dig that experience better. It could just be just a psychological thing for me. I just, prefer the traditional, lights compared to the fluorescents. But, especially during the hotter days, it seems like it's a little bit cooler in there because of that.
I much prefer incandescent light to fluorescent light. Fluorescent light is so terrible. For the last 10 years, I've shared an office with other people and with no window. And so being in that space with fluorescent light and that's the only light available is really difficult.
If you have the ability at your job, even if it's just stepping outside, go out, take a breather. That can definitely help you out, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts in the article?
No, I just hope it was useful for people to hear those tips and tricks from the Harvard Business Review.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too that I would say to people, like maybe a lot of this seems like just common sense stuff, but really take the time to assess whether you're following this common sense advice or not.
Yeah, and I mean, like the title of the article said, science. It's science. It's all science based. There's research backing up that these things matter.
That's right. It's from Harvard, baby.
Yeah, man.
All right. Before we go on, hang tight for these messages from one of our friends at the Deluxe Edition Network. Let's all go to the lobby.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a snack.
Quack, quack.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Everybody be cool, because this is season 3 of the Church of Tarantino podcast, and we're about to get medieval on your ass. I'm your host, the Reverend Scott K, and for our 3rd season here at the church, we'll be taking an in-depth look at the film that not only changed cinema, but made
We out the gimp.
and
Royale with cheese.
a part of the pop culture lexicon practically overnight. I'm of course talking about Pulp Fiction as it turns 30.
We should have shotguns with this kind of deal.
Along the way, we'll also be taking an investigative look at the psyche of the characters from the world of Pulp Fiction to see what makes them tick on our character study series.
Well, let's not start sucking each other's dicks quite yet.
And over on our Inglourious Blue Ball series, we'll be taking a deep dive into the numerous project announcements spewed from QT's mouth over the past 30 plus years to give you the level of blue balls these unrealized projects have left us with.
I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass 2 years.
So grab yourself a big kahuna burger and a $5 shake and stop on down to the Church of Tarantino and become a member of the coolest fucking church around.
God damn, Jimmy. This some serious gourmet shit.
Now touching you 3 times a month.
Professor Aubrey has a package in her hands that we have to say is quite delicious.
It is, Tim. It's Brazil from Coffee Bros. An amazing coffee with notes of cocoa and cherry candy.
Nice.
Delicious.
Indeed it was. Like you and I, we both drink coffee in very different ways. I need it, 9,000 degrees hot. And me, I make my coffee and then put in as many ice cubes as I can. I'm like the guy from Clerks, what am I supposed to drink this coffee hot? Type of guy. But you tried it your way, I tried it my way, and we both really enjoyed the flavor of this particular flavor of coffee.
Absolutely. It is a relatively new roastery in New York, New York. Those little town blues.
Yep.
Taking the Coffee Bros away.
Exactly.
Anyway, they're relatively new. They've been roasting since 2019.
Yes, but they do have great connections around the world in the coffee growing areas to be able to get the best beans, to be able to give their customers the best product. And you, our friends at home, if you go to coffeebros.com and you order your own batch of this coffee or any other of the delicious brands of coffee that they have on their website, in the promo code spot, you put FTN10, we're going to be able to save you 10%.
That's right. 10%. It's going to be like $1.50. It's going to be awesome.
But that's what friends are for.
That's what friends are for.
That's right.
$1.50 when you need it.
Exactly. I mean, you won't be able to get on the city bus, but you will be able to save some money to be able to get some wonderful coffee. Again, head to coffeebros.com and in the promo code box, put in FTN10 and you will be able to have some delicious coffee.
Yep.
Drink away, people. All right. Before we wrap things up for the week, how have you been?
I've been good, Tim. I've been really good. I am trying out something new in my quest to make my body feel better.
Well, hey, I mean, that's something like, why wouldn't a person want to do that? You know?
I mean, try everything, right?
Exactly.
Why not?
Mm-hmm.
I have been using for about a week some orthotic prosthetics in my shoes.
Is it the type like Trump has where it makes him appear like 3 feet taller than he really is?
No, they're not like that. They are designed to help you align your foot correctly by supporting your arches, basically. They're arch supports, as most people will call them, arch supports. And I've never really worn arch supports. I have worn, like super feet, like a Dr. Scholl's kind of thing, but never actually an orthotic. So it's been a really interesting experience, and I think that it is helping me.
How so?
I feel like my posture is better when I'm wearing them. My feet don't cramp up. I feel a little bit more spring in my step. Yeah, I'd say that's it.
Okay. I mean, you of course, are talking to someone who doesn't really know what an arch is. So where on my foot is the arch?
So the arch of your foot, you've got 4.
Okay.
There's the one on the inside of your foot.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that goes over here. And then there are 2 that connect them laterally.
All right.
Like this. So 4 arches basically making a square.
Yes, the visual for the people at home. While the professor did that, she was demonstrating with her finger on my feet, and I was trying to not laugh while she did that. It was like tickling me, but she showed me where my arches were.
Yeah.
All right. That is cool though. I mean, like I said, it's important to one, give stuff like this a try if you have the ability to do so. But yeah, I'm sure you got it for a particular reason, right? Or was this just something like, we'll give it a try?
Well, so I'm about to go on a trip during which I'm going to walk like 10 miles a day. And so I want to figure out, I wanted something that I could wear in whatever shoe I was wearing instead of buying new shoes. It seemed to me a better idea to buy something you could put in and take out of all your different pairs of shoes. So there was that piece. And then, yeah, just walking around that much, wanting to make sure that I'm doing the best I can for my feet. Because after my last trip where I was walking 10 miles a day, my feet kind of felt it. The balls of my feet kind of felt bruised. My feet were real crampy. So, like, trying to avoid that happening.
Which, it goes without saying, if you are going to be walking that amount on a consistent basis, even for a 2 to 3 week period, you do everything in your power to protect yourself and to, not have it to where you feel like absolute shit at the end. Because what type of experience would you have at Burning Man if, at the end of it, you're hoping for an Epsom salt bath at home?
Oh, well, I'll definitely be hoping for that.
But you get my point though. Like you were do you want a fun experience or one to where your feet end up in worse condition because you didn't take that extra effort to try the good feet out?
Yeah, it's true.
Yep. All right, look at me, Mr. Positive Man. All right. Well, I'm glad you got those. Me, this past week, I caught a bit of a documentary on Max, and while I will say it was a very good documentary, I just couldn't finish it.
Really?
It's the new Pete Rose documentary on Max called Charlie Hustle. and it's just his life story. And he's someone that from birth, thanks to a very shitty father, wanted to be the best baseball player in the world. He got to that point, beat Ty Cobb's records for most hits that a player ever did in the game of baseball, and then, whoops, discovered that, they discovered later that, he was gambling on baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so in 1989, the commissioner at that particular time, Bart Giamatti, interestingly enough, who was the father of actor Paul Giamatti.
Really?
Yep.
Love Paul Giamatti.
One hell of a great actor. But Bart Giamatti banned Pete Rose from baseball for life.
Wow.
And Pete Rose, for almost 20 years, said, I never bet on baseball. But then, wouldn't you know it, he had a new book come out, and he came out and said, yeah, I bet on baseball. I only bet on my team to win, but I bet on baseball. I mean, the infuriating thing listening to this documentary is all the excuses he has. It's like he wants, as a baseball player, if you're only taking what he did as a baseball player on the field into the equation, yes, he is one of the greatest baseball players that ever played the game, but just he broke the rules in a very major way. It's an integrity issue more than anything. I mean, because at the end of the day, it's like baseball is a game, but you don't want players, betting one way or the other, because he tried to rationalize it by stating, I bet on my team to win, which, theoretically would give a person more reason to want their team to win. But, you shouldn't be putting yourself through that by betting. You shouldn't be betting.
Because there's a conflict of interest?
Basically, yeah. Like
I understand what you're saying. Like, if I was betting against the team, then that would, maybe the team would throw the game or whatever.
Well, the thing with Pete Rose, too, is, like I said, they had tons and tons and tons of evidence on him that he bet on multiple games, like a serial offender. And he said he didn't do it.
Oh.
So that's really the big thing there. I mean, maybe it would be a different story if, if they presented him with the evidence and he said, well, you got me. Maybe the results would have been a lot different. But, he's still banned for life. And just hearing him, it's like he basically, because he's in his 70s or 80s now and still alive, he basically just wants the benefits of... He wants the accolades that he feels he deserves without paying the consequences for his actions that got him banned from the game in the first place. And this is just yet another person with way too much money, because in the documentary they talked about, since he left the game of baseball, he usually makes about $3 to $5 million a year just on autographs alone.
On autographs alone?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, this is not a guy that's, lacking money or anything like that, but just there's this, they talk about it in the documentary too, this sickness that I think is a sickness in some people. You see it in sports, the type of people that are uber dedicated, like your Michael Jordans. He has the sickness as well. He has to win everything. And that is a sickness. I am sorry. It's one thing to want to be the best and put in the work to be the best that you can possibly be. But that type of thing to where you have to win everything and then you beat yourself up mentally, if you don't, all because you had a terrible parent, I mean, that's not something that should be revered by people, I think. It should not be revered by people, but if we look at even today, the people that, like young folks hold in high regard, it's the same thing all over again. And it seems like that there is this veneration of people that are like a Pete Rose, the people who will do anything to win. That's not healthy. I'm sorry. I just don't think it is.
Well, I think every elite athlete thinks that way. I think it's like a thing for people who are really driven and ambitious and they want results. They act really fanatical. And that sort of imbalance in your life will lead to things like gambling addiction.
I would just counter, though, that, you do have elite athletes out there that are also not degenerate gamblers as well, that are able to have, regular upstanding lives. I don't think you have to become a terrible human being in order to be the best in anything.
That's not what I said, and that's not what you were talking about before. I agree with what you just said. The thing I was saying is that people who are so driven to have to win all the time are the people who do actually win all the time.
Doesn't make it right.
True.
It's not a
Doesn't make it right.
It doesn't.
But, if you think about, let's say, a skateboarder who is a good skateboarder and goes on the pro skateboarding tours, not going to be as good as Tony Hawk. Maybe they never get paid attention to, but they're still trying their best to be the best. Like, I think everybody who's doing sports at that level is trying to be the best.
True. And, unlike creative endeavors, sports does have definitive statistics that can show somewhat, like in football, a quarterback that can have less interceptions is going to be a better quarterback type of deal. So yeah, to your point, everybody going on the field does want to be the best, but not everybody's going to be the best. It's like I said, though, I think you can be the best without being a horrible human being like Pete Rose. It's a good documentary from what I saw of it. It's multiple episodes, and I think it's 4 episodes, and I just couldn't finish episode 4 just because it talked about how Pete was hired by Fox Sports to be a baseball analyst, and then whoops, little story came out about how he was dating underage girls when he was part of the Cincinnati Reds in the 70s. And yeah, he, his only defense was, oh, I only dated this one who was 18 and that was legal. And it's like, shut up.
Yeah. Well, let's not look up to him then.
Yeah, it's just, there are people that, like I said, he makes $3 to $5 million a year on autographs alone. I mean, I would love to make at least $1 million just signing my name all day for a year.
Right?
That would be great. But anyway, on that note,
I guess you got to have as many, you've got to have as many home runs as Pete Rose for that to happen, though.
Well, I mean, there are people that in the entertainment side of things that, hit like the Comic-Con circuit on a regular basis and, make a majority of their 9 to 5 money that way.
That's true.
Yep. Maybe I'll be a C-list actor one day. Anyway, for the most electrifying professor in podcasting today, each Monday we'll have something in this podcasting space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
Farewell.
Now get to work. Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.